All right, I'll mute myself.
Good seeing you.
I will give Bill money. I know it's expensive.
Hi, this is David. Can everybody hear me?
Can hear you, David.
Okay, I just wanted to point
Yes,
out.
I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I just want to point out I had difficulty last time calling in because I'm driving some kids around, so I needed to use the phone. And the phone number that's on the agenda, when you click that agenda suite, that call-in information doesn't work. So I jumped on my computer to log in for Zoom, and now I'm calling, but I won't be able to stay on the computer. But I just want to let someone know that that call-in information without Zooming doesn't work. I'm not sure if we can try to fix that going forward.
Thanks, David. Haven't tried it, but Lauren will make note, I'm sure.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, Bill, we're good to go.
You all ready, Lauren? Thank you. Okay, to call roll call, Bill Groves, Commissioner.
Craig Mellon, Commissioner.
Paul McGurk, Commissioner.
Susan Dowling, Commissioner.
Dave McBride, Commissioner.
Justin Primo, Commissioner.
Sam.
Oh, sure. Sam Eisenbizer, town staff.
Paige Bronk, town staff.
Jill Rusk, RTM representative.
Thank you, Jill. Very good. So first thing, we're gonna have public communications. I was not made aware of anyone was joining us this evening, but if there is anyone, Lauren, that you know of, I'd be happy to entertain.
Nope, there's nobody on the call.
So no public communications. Next up is our approval of minutes from the August 6th, 2020 meeting. Any changes, deletions, feedback, anything?
This
Move
is David. I
approval.
did have I'm sorry.
David?
Yeah, I just had a comment to Lauren. Like I indicated, I was on the previous meeting, but I couldn't call in or speak. So I had asked her to just put, I don't know how she wants to word it, but I was in the meeting, but I couldn't speak, but I listened to the entire meeting. So just add that into the minutes.
So putting as David as present for the meeting of August 6th. Anything else?
Yes.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Move approval.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. So, as I said, the meat of our meeting is going to be for the next couple, it's still, the focus is going to be our business outreach. Personally, I was pleased to see, for one, I compliment the entire team of Sam, Paige, and Lauren did a lot of the footwork, but able to get those masks printed up and such, and to take, Adam, how are you? And to get a signage for the businesses that is consistent with each other and such. I have seen them up, and that was a pretty quick turnaround, but I was also very pleased about how in most cases, as commissioners, we picked up what we had, we went out on our list, and we really did the best we could of contact. I know I had some challenges just because they were national changes and stuff like that. So I'd like to spend this first part and get the feedback of how did that go? For one, was it easier because you had something to hand people and to kind of to start the conversation? And what feedback we got from that. So Susan, I saw your list that came through. The rest haven't seen it. We'll put it all together so Laura can get everyone's list out there. But just give me your feedback and how did it go for you?
I'm just getting my list right now. You get the list?
Do you have an assistant there?
I have an assistant, yes.
Look at that. I
Very tall. Thank you, miss. Yeah, I did visit several, actually 8, the Sushi Wawa, I guess how you say it. They actually were closed, so it looks like they're closed, that they're not operational. I also went to the Star Discount Liquors, and they were really happy to see me. And what I do is I bring the poster in and the masks, and they were here for you. You know, we want to support you. Please feel free to call. call us, call the town development, planning and development. We want to hear from you, and we're volunteers. So that's basically my spiel for each. So I just didn't give it to them, and so at least they, have some information. So when I was at the liquor store, there was somebody there as a customer, and he was nodding and he was agreeable and he thought it was great. It was kind of funny. I thought he was part owner. Anyway, also I stopped at the Gold Star Pizza restaurant, and the that restaurant, they're blocked off, so they don't have people that can come in and sit, and there's nothing they can do about outside seating. So I said, well, what do you seem, their space was small, but it wasn't that small. I said, well, I've been to a lot of other small restaurants, and it's more inviting if you can come in. So, but I completely understand, but they just don't think they have enough space. So I just interacted about that, and they were very, very nice. And then I had visited the Veterans convenience store, and he was super nice. I didn't get names particularly because they give me a name and I don't have any place to write it down, but he immediately said, oh, come with me. And he wanted me to come outside and see that a couple of businesses next to him in the plaza had those sandwich signs. And he said that he put one out, and he was told he couldn't do that. So there was two businesses next to him, and I think he said one on the other side. Well, it's a small thing to us. I just listened to him. I appreciated what he was saying. I said, well, we'll check that out and see what's going on. And, it's got to be fair. So, again, it's not a big business. It's a, convenience store near the gas station. But I did, he was very happy that I was there, to see him and to listen to him. And then I stopped at 99 Restaurant. Again, that's kind of, there was just a staff person, and I just handed it to her, and, we told them, why I was there. Applebee's, same thing. And then there was Home Wellness Center, and there you can't go in. And I find with a lot of the businesses, because of COVID, it's kind of, you can't get at people necessarily and just try to, make your presence known. But the one person was happening to be walking in, because you can't go in, you have to call from your car. So that was one of those situations. So I gave her the poster and the mask, and she said she'd give them to the owner. So she was very nice also. And I also went to the Chinese kitchen. They weren't that friendly. They were actually, there was one car in the parking lot, and there were two people standing outside looking at their phone, and they have it blocked off with a table. And so it was, I don't know what's going on there. And she wasn't really, conversational. So, but I just don't know, the situation. It didn't seem, she did say business is slow. So that was sad and unfortunate, you could tell. And then that was basically it. I was looking for a couple of businesses. For some reason, I had trouble finding a couple, but I do have a few more that I can go to in the next few days. So, but that's my report. Again, just to share that with you.
Thank you very much, Susan. So as a footnote, so if you can get an answer for the guy with the sandwich board, because now you have a follow-up. Say, hey, just to let you know, I got an answer for you. And because I think that's really the exercise we're looking at here, is to get our faces, especially if we maintain that same list and they're seeing us more continually. And I'm sure that'll expand, hopefully, with new businesses coming in. So
I did say that. I did say that this is not the last time you'll see us. So I didn't say that. So that was, everybody was very nice and warm and happy and surprised. So just, again, it's a good thing.
Very powerful, though, if you went back and said, hey, I got an answer for you, because they're not expecting that, really. So, Justin, you had your hand raised? Justin?
Susan, if you do want to go back with an answer on sandwich boards, I know more than I want to know. They are allowed in Groton. You just have to bring them in every night. It's
I'll let him know.
Yeah, sandwich boards are completely allowed, long as it's not stuck into the ground. Has to be brought in every night.
Okay, yeah, it was just going to be placed outside by the street, where the grass area is. I'll go back tomorrow and tell them.
Yep.
That'll be quick
No,
service.
I got a 6-page letter from zoning about it.
Oh, thank you so much, Justin. Appreciate that. Thank
Thank you
you.
for the feedback, Justin. And with that segue, why don't you go about how your calls went?
Well, I felt like it was someone walking into my business, which I'm always apprehensive when I see someone coming in with material like they want to sell me something.
Didn't notice that at all when I stopped in.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I yelled at Bill to get the hell out. Everyone was very receptive once they realized what I was doing and that I wasn't trying to sell anything. I had a similar situation with Susan with 184 Pizzeria where they're completely blocked off. But she was very receptive and she's like, well, I'll take masks for my staff to have. I'm like, that's absolutely fine. As long as we have people with masks on, that makes me happy. Put the sign in the window, but they don't let people in the restaurant. Like, you walk in the door and it's blocked off by tables. I dealt with a couple of Dunkin' Donuts, which I dealt with them during the plastic ordinance meeting, so they're not a fan of me. And the people working were very receptive at Dunkin' Donuts, but they're like, the owner's not going to hang the sign. I was like, if she doesn't hang the sign, that's not a big deal. But if you need a mask, here are some masks to hand out to people. And the employees were very grateful for that. I had a similar situation as Susan, also in a package store on 184, was a customer was like listening to what I was doing, and he's like, wait, the town of Groton does this? This is so cool. This is actually great to hear. And he started chatting me up. I was like, yeah, well, it's Economic Development Commission, and we want all the businesses to be unified, with the same message. And he's like, I feel so much better about living here. So that was really nice to hear. There is one business I will never make it to, and that's Somewhere in Time, because I'm never around when they're open. They only do breakfast and lunch, and I'm either asleep or at the restaurant. And, I did have one business in 700 Flanders Road, which is the big industrial park. And I ran into actually 2 different people I knew, and neither of them had heard of this business, and no one could point me to where it was. Like, well, 700 is that building. So I went over and I couldn't find it. And the fact that there's a distillery in Groton and I don't know about it is a little confusing. So I did try my hardest. I did email Lauren all the email addresses I got today. So she has my list. It's kind of a short list just because I had a couple of corporate places and a couple where owners weren't around. And unfortunately, I did not have my business cards yet. They just came in today. So the 2 places where the owners weren't around, I can definitely stop back there and drop off my card to get an email address.
Thank you, Justin. Paul, how'd you do?
So I do have many more to do. I haven't had too much time to get out there, but I'm going to hit it hard this weekend. A number of businesses are closed that I approached, so I'm keeping track of those. Either out of business or shuttered in some way or form. I did go to a package store and a convenience store. They were very receptive. Said they'd put the put the sign up. I've been back. I haven't seen it up. So, but yeah, I do have probably about a good 2/3 of my list still to take care of this weekend. So.
Nothing wrong with that. As I said, as long as we're out doing it, that's the main thing. And I think from everyone's experience, it's a pretty good exercise from our standpoint of getting out. Greg, I know you hit it really quick compared to everyone else, because I think I had the list out and you were done. So why don't you share with me how'd it go?
I think it went pretty well. I got to, I think, 21 businesses that first day, and it was the day before sidewalk sales. So that made it a bit easier to do downtown Mystic. People were very receptive. The discussion was about EDC and then about COVID, and all of them were happy to talk about COVID one way or another in terms of their experiences. I was struck by how many businesses have changed in a short period of time. So I just went to the addresses of the places that had turned over, and they're all turning over. I mean, it feels like downtown Mystic is quite active. Broad reactions. There are some people or a number who are concerned, particularly on the weekends when people from out of town are flooding Mystic and they don't know how to handle the crowds or the reactions. Stores that are hard to manage and keep the volume of people down because they've got some limits on how many people can be in there and still be protective. There were sidewalk sales came up a number of times where a number of stores were going to participate, but they weren't sure why they were doing sidewalk sales because it felt the two juxtaposed with COVID protections and sidewalk sales didn't fit together. For a lot of them, they felt at risk and weren't particularly pleased or were going to play down what they would usually do for sidewalk sales. There were a number of them that reacted to Drawbridge ice cream because people sit outside of Drawbridge ice cream, eating their ice cream, sitting on the metal stanchions, and they're basically the only way you can eat an ice cream is without a mask. And so it completely compromises what everybody's been trying to do in terms of COVID protections. And we may want to come back to that to see if we can, I don't know if anybody knows Drawbridge ice cream better than I do in terms of the people there, but their owners didn't get back to me. So I talked with the staff who were there and they haven't put the sign up. And so it's a tougher issue there if it's compromising other businesses in downtown Mystic. There's some discussion of the two-way, one-way, each way walking over the bridge. And it's beginning to look like the Groton side is being better about signage and everything else than the Stonington side. And I don't know whether anybody did reach out to the Stonington side to see whether or not they could gear up a comparable effort to the one that we're putting in on the Groton side. Another issue that did come up was that with all the success that Young is having with his restaurants, the recent addition of Young Buns, their donut place, makes it really hard to park in the immediate area, even for short stops to restock a store, because everything is people who are parking whatever it is they need to do to get in line to go to Young Buns. So we may be winding up seeing the opposite of what one would expect everywhere else, more business than people know what to do with in terms of the consequences of that. The one broader concern I heard was that the restaurants that have been able to find outdoor space and make it work have been pleased. What happens when the fall hits and outdoor space becomes limited? There are a number of people who, even if they're allowed to, they're not going to want to go to restaurants once the outdoor space is unavailable. So I guess that would probably be most of the issues.
Unmute. Thanks, Greg. David, do you have an opportunity to get out at all?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, again.
Okay. I got out to a few. I didn't get out as many as some of the others, but I did hit Fort Hill, Citgo, Acme's Package Store, obviously Groton Dairy Queen, and Pizza Palace and Grand Spirit Shop, and I'll give the contact information I received to Lauren. The one thing I do want to comment is I thought it was much easier approach with the business cards and the masks, and I thought it was kind of a welcoming way to go in there and speak to them and explain, what we're trying to achieve, and that will be back in touch. So that was very helpful. Prior to this, it was a little awkward to go in and start discussing things without, any kind of introductory material to provide them. So that was very helpful. I did receive the same kind of feedback in terms of the poster. I kind of got the feeling like, especially like when I was talking to the guy from Acme's Package Store, he didn't seem like he was going to hang the poster up. So I kind of got that feeling at various places, just because, signage is key to a business, and they're probably going to use their own signage for advertising versus that. But I do think what I did is I put the masks in a package, a little sandwich bag for 5 masks or 3 masks, I think I did. And that was kind of the kit I gave them, was the mask, the pile of masks, the business card, and the poster as like a welcome kit kind of thing to show up. And the one thing I don't want to say struggle, but I told them what we're trying to achieve. But it will be nice once we do have another forum or some event to go to be able to explain to them, because asking them for their email address is important. I'm explaining we're asking for the email because they're going to be contacting you with updates and so forth. And I talked about the plastic ordinances, but if we have a reasoning to emailing them, I think that will be helpful as well as we continue down this path. So that's pretty much all I have to report. I do have some more legwork to do to contact the rest of my list, but it was very helpful to have that information, and I guess that's my brief update.
Thank you, David. I did my calls. As I said, my first one was Justin, so it didn't start off smoothly. But the same response, I think the most important part of the exercise from my standpoint is we were going with something to give to them. And I do agree with the business cards, because now they have something in hand. And the way I use my card is, if you need more masks, give us a call. We have more. Now, I don't know if we've gotten any calls at this point in time, but it's just kind of like Susan following up down, hey, I got an answer for you. It's just to keep in contact. Emails, what I started doing, because it's something I kind of do sometimes in my business anyway, but most of the businesses that I call on are LLCs. Even the small places are LLCs. LLCs all have to be recorded in Concord, which you can go into the state of Connecticut Concord, which is where they're registered. And I can get actually the owner an email address. And what I was doing is, most of the time talking with the workers, is confirming that with them. Hey, is this the person? And would this be his email? And yeah, so now I was like, okay, it's a good one. So sometimes we can get the information and we're just confirming it with them. Because I know that was always been a struggle, is the owners on site at the time, are they available to talk to you and such? Because the list is going to be really what we're trying to drive is email addresses. We want to be in contact for our blasts when we're doing forums and such like that. So as I said, I'm pleased that we have utilized it. I hate to say that COVID has been a kind of a blessing from some of the things we're trying to do, but it's given us an issue to get out there with. So we've done a good job, I think, of reaching out from that standpoint and try to grow on that going further, because we have other stuff coming up. This is not, there's a lot more on coming forward with this. So Justin, you had your hand raised?
Yes. Bill, something to what David was saying about one of the places he stopped and communicating with the new package store, the new Ackley's. And I think this is something we can take away from this, and we need to address on a larger scale, not just COVID related. Bill, you went to all my neighbors in my plaza.
Yep. Well, the ones on the list. They weren't all on the list, but the ones that were on the list, right?
Most of them are immigrants.
Yes, I know that.
all different stripes, all different nationalities. And my experience with having them as neighbors and knowing other immigrant business owners, they're very apprehensive to anyone talking to them. And we need to be able to break that barrier. And it's Hispanic, it's Asian, it's Middle Eastern, it's across the board. Like, that's something we need to figure out, is how do we communicate with them where they're comfortable to actually share an email address, to where they're comfortable picking up the phone. Like my landlord, he will ask me to speak to my neighbor who owns the nail salon.
Correct.
He's like, you can understand him, I can't. And this is my landlord. So it's like,
My landlord also, Justin.
yes.
So as I said, for a little bit of a tool, because what I've found in some of those businesses, they're not the owners. The owners, because a lot of times I deal with owners that have multiple locations. So like you say, nail salons, they'll own 5 of those nail salons in this whole general area. That's where to take that one little step of going into Concord, because they have to register that information with the state. And then I'm just getting verification, because you're right. They're not going to sit there and say, yeah, this is his email address, and write it down. That's always been a little bit of a barrier. So I just try to give some little tools that I've learned and see how they work. Susan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just have to confess, I did steal 3 masks because I was so excited that my husband and daughter going, oh, great, the mask. And so then I realized they were only 75 in the bag. So I thought, uh-oh. Anyway, but I thought it'd be a good idea for all of us to actually, we have to wear the mask when we enter any businesses. So it might be a good idea to actually wear the mask ourselves. So I thought maybe that's a good excuse for me just taking them. So
exactly what I did. I went out, when I handed my out, I had my mask on.
Yeah, and I like the idea of using the baggie, you know, to put the 5 in and that way. And I forgot to get the emails. I find there's a lot of people coming from out of state, like Craig was saying, from New York particularly. And so I hear, and I know everybody hears this, that there's a lot of real estate purchases, you know, up and down the East Coast, and seems to be coming into this area as well. So I guess it's good for, you know, business, real estate and the economy. Except for parking, it's not so good. But it's good to have, you know, stimulation as long as, you know, they're doing business with our local merchants.
To see one of the strengths, and it kind of goes to what Craig said, and I've observed it, and so this is more attuned to Mystic. These businesses have closed, and there's someone right away jumping into them. So that's strength. I mean, and I've said that before. There are a lot of people interested in coming into our area. From a business perspective. So we can't lose that grasp. Is we have strength going for us. I think it's more to make sure that the business community knows we're there as a resource. And it'll hopefully we'll get this to perpetuate where it's just a normal type of process for us. So.
Well, it's a beautiful place to live and a beautiful place to visit. So I can't imagine anybody not wanting to come and tell all their friends. So.
And we want to expand that off because Mystic is a beautiful place unto itself, but Groton has the same potential, and other people are seeing that also.
Of course, yeah, our town.
So
this is David. Can I jump in for a quick comment
David,
on that?
please.
Yeah, I know Paige is probably going to cover some things from things he's working on. But one thing I did want to comment on, and I don't know where this goes and how we can utilize it if we can, but I've done some research, and what I've found is if the PPP program comes back again, which my understanding it is, or it's supposed to, there's a clause in there where if a existing business buys out one of the previous businesses that has closed up shop, the new business owner can go back and apply for PPP money from the previous business owner. So I think that's important to know, because any of these, if Paige or Sam have an understanding of these businesses that have closed, if a potential person who's looking to buy those out can go back and utilize and get, in essence, 3 months free salary to kickstart that business open, it's something that everybody should be aware of, because that's a huge bonus for somebody starting a new business by taking over an existing business.
Thank you, David. So I'm going to segue this because, and I appreciate everyone's feedback, and I do really encourage, even for some of us that have gone out there, is to keep going out there and reaching out. Hey, do you need more masks, whatever, and to follow up on those lists. But so the second part of the agenda for still staying with the outreaches, and it's something we just have to keep on our radar, is the plastic ordinance is going to be, and I believe it's October. They gave us a little bit of a breathing room there, but that's coming back again. And we don't really know if how's that going to look. And we have some things that we've heard, and I reached out to Justin. Unfortunately, we couldn't talk, but I kind of let him know what I was looking for. But I would like to do a forum on September. I think we kind of came up with the 21st because it was a Monday, which we thought that was the best day of the week, and get it out there before we're into October, barring the council, if they make any other things. But one of the things I've heard, and that's what we asked Justin, if maybe we can get some contact suppliers to be on this forum, is what's the supply chain look like for these alternative products? Because I've heard supply chains still are a mess in general. So that's what I would like to do. And even if it's, I mean, I'd love to have everyone on the call, but to have at least Justin and I on there to be able to bring in a couple people from that supply chain, and let the businesses because the council will hear it, and they might even be on the call, to promote it. So Justin, feedback on that? Or
I can tell you, yesterday, I have next day delivery. Yesterday, I ordered 2 different sizes of paper bags, neither of which showed up today. So they sent me a case of plastic bags.
So it's an issue.
Just to hold me over.
Right.
And in the past, when I've ordered paper bags, if they don't have the right size, they send me something kind of close, but they don't necessarily work for us, or they're way too big or way too small. So yeah, the paper thing's definitely an issue.
Well, I think in general, we're talking paper, we're talking bags, the packaging of takeout, which is a big issue.
That's also an issue.
There's a lot of things that we want to touch base on that. So I would like to hold a forum call, a Zoom meeting on September the 21st.
Yes, and my suppliers would be happy to be part of that.
Perfect. If you could, yep, go ahead, Paige. I could see you wanted to talk. Yeah.
I think first things, we had talked, Bill, earlier, how although the council had extended the regulation, the plastics reduction program, it technically goes into effect August 1st. I'm sorry, October 1st.
Right.
So we've been dealing with COVID, and I think we wanted to use this forum as an opportunity to also educate people. This is now, it's coming up, and then we can really offer some informational benefits, some resource in dealing with the vendors. The other comment is, if it's possible, it would be better to have more than one vendor. We don't want the image saying that the Groton EDC is advocating you go through company X. If we could have at least 2, I think that shows some options.
I think I relayed that over. That correct, John? You can get more than one vendor?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have a regional company, does all of New England, and I also have a local company out of Rhode Island.
And it'll also be a vehicle for businesses to share, like you just did, is some of the obstacles they found in general with their supply.
Oh, I also have a national company that would be part of it as well.
Okay. So yeah, we're offering something, but I also want to hear what they're dealing for, as I want whoever else's participants as council and stuff like that to hear also. Susan.
Is that a definite date on September 21st?
Yes, I want to say it's the definite date because when we looked at the calendar and when we meet prior to the commission meeting, we kind of have to go from the parameters, and October 1st is when this is going active.
Okay. I have a golf tournament that day. not that it's.
Oh my God.
I know.
Sorry.
I know at Great Brook or whatever it's called, Great Neck rather, in New London. So
You have a caddy for that, so you got an assistant and a caddy. That's great. Good.
that's it. You got my car. So I got all going on.
Yeah, I mean, the more I would like participation from as many commissioners as possible, because it just shows that we're behind it and such. It's not necessarily a forum. Really, the forum is for the suppliers and the business owners, and we're the ones hosting it. So I'd rather be a listener than a talker anyway, but it's just nice to see us up there because we're just hosting the forum is really how it comes down to. It's not a EDC, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but it's not an EDC meeting per se. Is that correct?
Right. Yep, that's correct.
No, so.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I just usually attend when I can, so I just wanted to make sure I knew if that was a definite date. Thanks.
If Paige can Zoom from his boat, you can Zoom from the golf course, just saying. Is everyone in agreement of that, though? That's probably, something that we should, I didn't
Bill,
think there'd be any disagreement, but Justin.
Bill, are we gonna put some press on this?
Yes.
Okay.
We met last week. I reached out to you and both of our
Yeah.
schedules are a little crazy, but I just want to make, we keep everything as upfront with as a commission. So it just made a lot of sense to all of us. And I wanted just to get it out there so everyone knows that this is what we're planning on
No,
doing.
but let's let business owners know and
Well, we'll contact the day, the local stuff.
Yeah.
Lauren will do the email blast,
Okay.
the normal thing. So yeah, we'll do our same
the
efforts.
last one
And
was a great turnout.
Yes, we have our list of 17 businesses. Another follow-up. You need more masks? Oh, by the way, we're having this forum on the 22nd. And kind of, just every avenue we have, we want to get out there with it. Make sense?
Good plan.
Anything else on that?
There's no chance.
Yep.
There's no chance that the council will reconsider the October 1st again.
Hey, there's always a chance, but you know what?
Yeah.
We sent letters. I believe you sent a letter too, didn't you?
Yes.
There was a lot of communication prior to them making the decision, yet they waited, to make the decision. So I don't have those answers. I mean, I would have loved to have Leanne on the call today just to kind of but the council's the council. We're the EDC. So I'm not going to tell them what to do. But all we can do is provide information and let them make their own minds up. But it's kind of a tight schedule to do it at this point. So
Understood.
Enforcement is another issue, I guess, but we'll see how that one goes. Okay, I'm going to go on to new business. And Paul brought this up at the end of the last thing about short-term rentals. It is something that I know that's going on out there. I know it's a very difficult topic. I'm going to basically leave the floor to you, Paul, to explain what you're looking for the EDC to do with it. And then I'd be happy to discuss it. I don't know where our place is here, but take it away, Paul.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know where our place is, and full disclosure, I have a short-term rental. It's co-located here with me in the walkout section of my house. So I'm not, I don't have an independent property that a lot of people have problems with, right? So my concern is that seems to be very draconian ideas about regulating short-term rentals, particularly in the NOANC area, and and it's led by the planning and zoning, NOANC planning and zoning fire district. I don't believe these folks are elected officials, and there's been very, very limited input by short-term rental owners. There was the ability to give input almost over a year ago, and they've continued down the path of coming up with their ideas around how to regulate these, including, there's different plans, but some of them include permitting, which I think is appropriate, permit inspection type activities, totally appropriate. Where it starts to get a little anti-business is around, there's comments around how much should we allow these people to make, and that doesn't seem very capitalistic to me, a capitalistic comment to me, and pro-business. And there's also these ideas that they're only going to allow one rental every 2 weeks. And that clearly shows me that they do not understand the short-term rental business, and that people rent 1, 2, 3 nights a week. So that would essentially cut business in, you'd essentially have a quarter of your revenues, and it makes it not worth it anymore. And I believe this is a very important business in this area. It's a silent business that brings a number of visitors to the area every, especially in the winter, summertime. And these people are eating in restaurants, they're shopping in the stores, they're out visiting attractions in the area. They're all in, right? They're spending money, and they're at a restaurant for every meal. Just in Noank itself, I believe there's over 25 short-term rentals. So you times that by 2, 3, 4 people, every weekend we're booked. You're talking hundreds of people entering Mystic and our local restaurants during the weekend from short-term rentals just in Noank, not even counting the other areas. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the fact that it's being regulated. If, in Noank, it's going to be different in Groton Long Point. It's going to be different in Groton Town. There's no united front. It kind of gets back to the whole, Groton and the separate fire districts problem. And I know the council had talked about it, but obviously there's more important business came up with COVID and other things. So I know it's been on the back burner a little bit, but I would certainly expect them to take it up in the future. And then now, what if they have ordinances or regulations, and how they conflict with the specific NOAC regulations? And it just seems like it's going to be a complete mess to me. And I don't think that's our remit. Kind of getting on my soapbox here, but I think from an EDC perspective, I don't know exactly where we fit in here, but my concern is that there's the discussions going on at the NOAC Planning and Zoning Commission include very draconian rules, anti-business rules, and highly, highly regulating, short-term rentals, which, for instance, my short-term rental, you could ask my neighbors if I had one, they'd never know. They wouldn't know if I was short-term renting or not, because I'm set up properly. Obviously, there's issues with other ones where you have these party houses, so to speak, which the short-term rental companies have done a lot to stem that, including offering free noise detection, devices that you can install in your house that you're alerted to, over 80 decibels, things like that. So I think, I don't know what I'm asking for, Bill, and the rest of the commissioners, but I just feel like it would be a detriment to the area if we highly regulated these things and put, these draconian ideas about dictating how much a person can make in their business and how many times you can offer it per day. Needless to say that, I find something very, very wrong with somebody dictating who I can invite into my house on my private property, and whether or not I can charge them money. But those are my own personal feelings.
Thanks for, Paul, I'm glad you brought it to us, because there's a lot of, from a business standpoint, since we don't have anything even out on the table, I think it's just to keep on everyone's radar, because I know, and Dave probably can speak to this, there's always grumblings, but usually it's a noise issue. So you talk about party houses. I've never heard of trying to do ordinances from the standpoint of what someone can make, what they can't make. I mean, their market rates are market rates. So if someone's willing to spend $1,000 a week, or who's to tell you that? But I would be more interested to see if the council does pick it back up again. I don't know how it works with the fire districts setting their own parameters. I know Groton Long Point, we are an association, so we vote that way, but I don't even know if we've taken that up. I just know I hear grumblings about it, but it's more from the noise standpoint. Justin.
I just had a question for Paul. Paul, I have an Airbnb here on BB Cove, and I haven't done it at all this summer because of COVID. I'm curious if you've rented yours out at all.
Yes, yeah. As soon as the executive order was up in June, we've rented ours. It's been booked every single weekend, busier than last year. Yep, and we've taken
because no one can go overseas. Right.
Yeah, and we've had enhanced cleaning training from Airbnb. And I'm a molecular biologist, so I can I think I got it all over the COVID with the Lysol, so I got it figured out. But yes, and it's zero contact, right? Digital locks. Zero contact, zero.
Susan,
just curious.
Yeah. Well, I live up in Crosswinds, and there's a neighbor that moved in here from California, and then somehow they disappeared. We didn't get to know them. They've been here 2 years, and we find out by accident from a neighbor that they're Airbnb-ing it. I think there has to be some, and I appreciate, obviously businesses and, Airbnbs is a place for it everywhere, and I'm an advocate. But I think there has to be some frame of rules or some sort of, I want to say, not stringent regulations, and certainly not based on what you charge and that kind of thing. But I think there has to be, there was trash flowing all over the place and noise and all that. I mean, there's only so much you can do, but I think there just has to be something there that it has some frame in terms of what neighbors can expect, if they're living in a neighborhood where it's not a typical thing that you see. In Groton Long Point, I mean, they do rentals all the time, and it's they figured it out, and it's not necessarily Airbnb. I'm sure there's some in there, but it's certainly doable, and we should be able to figure it out and make it so that everybody's happy and not just the people that come for a week or two.
Hey, David, did you want to speak on it at all, just from the Groton Long Point standpoint? Because I know that I've heard it, but
yeah, without getting into too much detail, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. We are spending a significant amount of time reviewing this matter. As you know, many people are pro, many people are opposed to it. So really reviewing it. But one thing I also want to mention is that the mayor of Groton has put together a subcommittee that is researching this, and I think they're meeting every 2 weeks. And Groton Long Point has 2 representatives on that committee, one who's in the planning and zoning. So I think there is an effort to try to consolidate thoughts between the various fire districts. Not saying it can be mandated, because each district can do their own thing from their planning and zoning ordinances, but everything is being reviewed in great detail, and it's there's an attempt to try to get everybody consolidated and consistent. And from what I've read, and I'm just reading from the periphery, I have a past president that's very involved from Groton Long Point, and they are researching everything, and there's tons of information that's going forward. Even in New London, I'm aware of a lot that's happening there. So it is being researched, and all these things are being considered, but I don't think there's going to be anything done too soon, because there is great legal risk in terms of implementing something that is an infringement upon personal property rights. So in Groton Long Point, we kind of have a more of an informational kind of let people know what you're doing. We're coming up with a review process of informing the association that you are doing Airbnb, more as a communicative tool to provide the renters with letting them know about our ordinances, letting them know about our rules and regulations, and even things of that nature. So it's really not constrictive right now, but it is something that everybody's trying to wrap their hands around. So don't have a lot of information to add, but that's where we're at, and it's more trying to find out how best to move forward and kind of balance the desires of both sides.
Greg, you had your hand up.
More about the broader role of the EDC in these kinds of things. If we look back at the plastics ordinance, where we stepped in was between the town council and the businesses to try to open up a forum to talk about the issues. And I'm wondering whether that isn't the right role for us in a number of things. Could be on short-term rentals, but it would need to be the whole town, and we couldn't narrow in on Noank, but it would not be inappropriate for us to convene a group that talks about both the business perspective and the neighbor perspective, and to have people talk about it. Or if we were to go to the COVID issue that we were talking about, lots of businesses are trying to think through not what are the rules, but how do we help our employees to be able to manage the situation when somebody comes in, and offering a forum where we even had somebody in who could help talk that through, but who could help businesses and their employees deal with the pressures that they're feeling, and even know that they have other people who are going through similar issues and learning about it from each other. That feels like an appropriate EDC future panel kind of role for us.
Thanks, Greg. So Paul, I'm going to ask you to do this because it's one of these topics that I know is out there, but it's really kind of, as David said, they're all kind of talking to a lot of legal ramifications. I always find neighbors are the best way to stem any problems, because in Long Point, we know each other. So if you're writing to people that aren't just like, hey, why don't you screen the people, we don't hesitate. But I ask you this, that is, if there gets to be another phase or their council's meeting or something that you get, bring it to us. And if we feel it's appropriate as a commission, we will, look at then say what our role is and what we should do at that point in time, whether it's a forum or such like that. But so I'll ask you to bring it back if something else arises that we should be aware of.
Sure. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Thank you. Chair report, I've kind of go over everything that we met with and going forward with the forum. As I said, I want to thank everybody that has participated in our outreach. And I'm a firm believer is the more we do it, the easier it gets for us. So we got to just keep it up, and it's not a one-off thing. We've been talking about this since I've been on the commission, and I think this is the first time we actually had, from one meeting to the next, viable lists. This is the people I talk to, so that's a good thing. And we will expand those lists, as Craig said, his list is kind of a moot point because they've already had changeovers. So we want to make sure that we keep up to date on everyone that's kind of coming in. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Paige for the staff report.
Okay, great. Thank you. I guess perfect segue, talking about COVID. That's been on the top of our monthly report for quite a while. Although not included in the staff report, I do want to kind of circle back to something that was mentioned earlier about some of the turnover in Mystic. Sam always does an outstanding job with the monthly reports. I'm sorry, the monthly newsletters, but this particular month was exceptional. And the lead story, for those who have not actually seen it, is entitled Positive Outlook, 9 New Mystic Businesses Bet on the Future. And there's a short excerpt, a description for each of those 9 businesses. So we've all seen this change in Mystic, but it's not bad. There's 2 sides to a coin. As one business leaves and a new one comes in, we have to believe that sometimes the glass is half full, and possibly the new business will perform better. Maybe they have a better business model. So I think that is what Sam was trying to capture in that story. If you haven't seen it, the newsletter this month, please do. We've also talked about the masks and the posters. That was a heavy lift for Lauren and Sam in particular. We're really pleased as well that the EDC stepped up to distribute that really was key. We did recently submit a COVID-19 CDBG grant, Community Development Block Grant. The first step in submitting that to the state was a detailed letter of intent that went in last week, I believe. We are asking the state for $300,000 so that we can, if we are granted that funding, we would stockpile PPE for all of Groton. And that would include all political subdivisions, It would include departments. It would include businesses, community organizations, because we did learn that there was a major challenge in getting PPE. We've heard that anecdotally from local businesses, but the NAVA retail surveying work also identified that, you know, it's very difficult to get supplies that you need in the moment. So we will load up, literally, if we get the money, we're going to have a classroom in the former Fitch Middle School where Parks and Recs is, where we're going to load up a classroom with PPE equipment for when we really need it. Hopefully we don't, but if and when we need it, it will be available. Speaking of NAVA retail, we entered the second phase of the 4-phase effort for surveying businesses. That second phase began the first week in August, or I'm sorry, August 10th. We should be getting results on that quite shortly. Again, the first phase was early June. So we did the second phase early August. We'll do the third phase in the fall, last phase post-holiday. So that'll really give us a trend analysis to see how things are going. We have heard that the summer did pick up a little bit better for businesses. And also they said they are getting the PPE that they need. Even, you know, through the private market, but also clearly what we're doing with PPE helps them as well with the masks. Marketing, I just mentioned Sam's latest newsletter. Again, you should take a look at that. Wayfinding sign master plan. We did have a real positive meeting on August 19th with our consultant Beta, and also the Mystic Rotary and the Groton Rotary, who we've solicited for some grant funding to jumpstart this effort. We are hoping to have some signs in the ground by spring 2021. It won't be an extensive number, but we are targeting downtown Mystic, and also we're targeting the intersection of Route 117 and Route 1. That should give us a pretty good example of what these signs are going to look like, and that'll lead into requesting additional funding to move into other phases for implementation. Affordable housing grant, we did secure a $15,000 grant to complete that state mandate. Specific to public properties, Mystic River Bluffs, also known as Mystic Education Center, been focusing a lot on the zoning draft, weekly on that. A lot of attorneys involved, staff involved, hoping to get that draft to the Planning and Zoning Commission this month in September. But the developer has been involved as well. So it wasn't crafted by the developer, it was crafted by staff and our legal guidance, but we wanted to make sure that it worked for that particular project. Specific to the Pratt building, the recreation building at the property, our consultants, Greenplay and Peary, they've definitely stepped it up recently. They finalized the community recreation assessment, which helped us understand what does Groton want? What do they need in this community for recreation? No surprise, an aquatic center was number one. So next they have to figure out how they're going to program the space within the Pratt building for these needs. They're working on that right now, coming up with cost estimates. Clearly the pool will remain, it will be upgraded, the gym will remain. Big question for us is the auditorium. Is that going to remain, or are we going to convert that into some other space? Groton Heights, it's been a little quiet lately on that, mainly as a result of COVID, and they're a small business, but we do expect some movement this fall on that. Their investors are in town this month, and we have a pretty important meeting with them later this month. Gold Star Highway has some momentum as well. We'll be going back to council with an update on that shortly. Triton Square, the former Sealy School, that's active. We are communicating with them weekly, very close to going back to council to present their pretty detailed concept plan and get approvals from the council to move forward. Once that happens, they're going to move forward into demolition for the building. And right around that time is when they'll move into going through their official regulatory review through our Planning and Zoning Commission to get permission for the 280 unit multifamily housing development. Colonel Ledyard School, we are working on a final option agreement right now with that developer. He is extremely eager to move forward with that project, which is about a half a mile away from EB. Pleasant Valley School, we issued the RFP for that. Pleasant Valley is behind Scucci Honda. We issued the RFP last Wednesday, and proposals are due October 28th. We don't want to necessarily prescribe what's going to happen there, but we anticipate we'll have more multifamily development interest on that site. One new metric that we added to this monthly report was unemployment data. It may not have been that significant months back. Groton's always done quite well. But in light of COVID, we really wanted to take a look at how Groton is performing relative to the state. And if you have the report in front of you, you can see as a baseline, look at January, February, that's kind of our normal. And even into March, you know, we're hovering between low 3% to mid 3%, which is outstanding. For the most part, that's below the state average. And then COVID hits. And we immediately spike in April, going to 11%, in May, 12.6%. And if you compare that same time frame with the state, you'll notice Groton ramped up, its unemployment went higher quicker, whereas the state's unemployment was more of a steady climb. Then you get to roughly June, what you see is that the state continues to climb, but Groton begins to decline significantly by almost 1 percentage point between May and June. Went from 12% roughly to 11%. I'm not rounding, but it's the change that's really important. And then furthermore, into July, we dropped another percent, whereas the state maintained its unemployment rate over 10%. We are hearing from Nava Retail with the survey that things seem to be better this summer. We want to continue to track that through the fall, especially with restaurants when the weather changes. But we do anticipate that when we get the August numbers, we could very well slip under 10% unemployment. And it's a big difference between 10.1 and 9.9. It's just psychologically a big difference in terms of double digit and single digit. So we added this information so that EDC members would understand how this is working. As you're speaking with businesses in the community, you can have this data, and maybe it'll offer a little bit of optimism that Groton seems to be coming back around to some degree. Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. Sam, you want to add anything on that? Because I actually got a call from our third party and had a nice long conversation. It was an intern, so he actually gave him information, but it was a very thorough call. It went through all the specs that Paige was talking about. Are we hiring? Are we, you know, what's the size of our staffing? Or how are we getting our PPEs? All that type of stuff. So anything to add on that?
No, not at the moment, but I'm definitely going to be interested to see what the Nava Retail findings are. Paige mentioned those preliminary feedback, so we do expect to get that in the coming weeks.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Justin, you had your hand up?
Paige, I don't know how unemployment numbers work. Is it jobs in the actual town, or is it people who live in the town?
It would be the people that live in the town.
Okay. Just so you know, I'm like, there's a lot that's beyond our control. Like, I know a lot of the shops at Boxwoods are closing, and I know people who live here are going to be unemployed. So it's like, that's beyond our control. Like, but that's still going to show up as a number for Groton people.
That's correct. And the middle column talks about the region, the Norwich, New London, Westerly
Okay. Yep.
area. And your point is valid, but you'll notice that those numbers are really high. I'm totally speculating on this, but I think that may have to do with casino impact.
Okay. Okay.
But you're right. Those who reside in Groton
Mm-hmm.
had worked at a casino, they would be contained in the Groton unemployment data.
Okay.
Just as a footnote, Justin, I talked to a few people in the restaurant. They were former casino workers, and
Yep.
they had, and so this is over the period that we were just looking at there, like that June, July. They've gone into restaurants in this area. Fishermen, prime example. They recruited
Yes.
a lot of people.
Oh yeah, they have a lot of casino people
So
there.
we're able to fill those spots from that. That helps also on those
Oh,
numbers.
absolutely. And God bless the fishermen. I'm glad they're up and running.
Yep, very good. Anyone else? Okay, liaison reports. Adam, are you still with us?
I
Hey,
am.
there he is.
I was just hiding.
That's fine.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I submitted my report, but I'll highlight a couple things. The Census Bureau item there is a good thing. Jill is on the complete count committee with me and a bunch of other folks who have been putting in a lot of time on this. And the Census Bureau will come around and do these mobile questionnaire assistance sessions with, Census Bureau personnel, so government employees with IDs and vetted. We're going to host one at the sub base, and now the date is set in front of the commissary, Tuesday, September 15th. And then almost 100% sure the next day in the housing areas. So both on base for people hitting the commissary and off base right in the housing area, which is a hard to count community. So this is kind of the last push. The September 18th is the last day for self-reporting, but you will see enumerators walking around door to door into October, I believe. So shortening it is going to undercount most likely, but we're doing the best we can to get it counted here in Groton. And then I won't read the whole thing there, but if you're interested to check out that Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program, the state of Connecticut successfully put in for a grant and to be designated as a defense manufacturing community. Southeastern Connecticut weighs very heavily into that with the Naval and Maritime Consortium, Electric Boat and all the suppliers. And so we're one of 6 in the country. And you can go on the OEA, DOD Office of Economic Adjustment website to read more about that. But it's a high tech side of the equation, but it's hopefully going to spur some economic development in that area, especially in the defense pipeline, supplying pipeline and manufacturing world. So I think that's a positive thing. It's one of those things that will pay benefits into the future more so than immediately. But that's about it. Any questions?
I see none.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So,
I don't see Jill on. Did Jill have to leave? I assume she did. Okay. Any other business?
Hey, Bill, I have a question.
Yes, Craig.
Now that we've gone out and we're getting feedback from people and we're talking to them, somewhere along the line, we owe them responses, as you were sort of talking about with Susan. And there's some that I just didn't know what to do with. So that a number of businesses have concerns that are created by the success of other businesses is an interesting one. Like whether it's Drawbridge creating the traffic that you can't walk past, or no trash cans outside of Drawbridge, so there's refuse all over in front of it, or the impact of Young Buns on parking in the area. And it's fine for me to collect the feedback and pass it on, but I'm not sure that anything happens with that, and that could encumber our ability to go out and talk to people if we don't know what to do to help people to sort through issues.
What I would suggest, because so garbage is a perfect example. We discussed it last week because we were talking about and okay, that might be an issue that we bring to Public Works, stuff like that. How can we accommodate? Maybe we need, because it's the weekends is the biggest problem, is they're not having the cans aren't being emptied and they can't handle anymore. It's an issue. We get a response, then you go back to them with that and said, this is what we've done so far. We don't have an answer for you yet, but I wanted to let you know we're following up. Some of the other things, sometimes they're not going to have an answer for them, but we do have the different departments and areas of the town that we can at least get a response, and at a minimum, I followed up with that for you. If I hear something, I'll get back to you. The most important is we're listening. I can't say we're going to be able to solve everything, but we're listening and doing our best to facilitate something that works. That's the best as I can see it. So,
well, given your trash response to drawbridge, is it possible for us to reach out to whoever we've reached out to for trash to add trash receptacles outside of drawbridge if they're not going to put one out themselves, or inside? I mean, it's sort of what people are sort of congregating outside, and then when they're done with their ice cream stuff, they just sort of drop it.
I will follow up on that one, because I don't think it's necessarily drawbridge. I think it's a factor of when we have such an influx on weekends, the garbages are not being emptied on the weekends because of the function. For one, how do you get garbage trucks down there? They're mostly overflowing. So so we can recognize an issue and see if we can come up to some type of conclusion. And I'll follow up on that specific thing about the garbage issue as we see it. There again, conservation should be on board with these types of things too, because it's part of what they look at from the, the plastics, paper. I don't care. It's still garbage. So, Susan.
Yeah, Craig, I think you brought up a couple weeks ago or a month ago about the masks. I know you brought up a valid point about you see them everywhere. It's shocking to me that they're on the ground. I'm thinking, do they fall off their face? Do they just throw it away? I just think it's very strange, and you see them everywhere. So I really think that, I think you had pictures, photos. So I wonder, is there any updated conversation about that? Or is that just something that, we're leaving with town maintenance or something?
I think you too, Bill.
I mean, it could be a function of what we're talking about. Are they on the ground because the garbage, they're putting them in garbage cans and now they're blowing out? I've seen them come out of cars all the time. Someone gets in their car and a mask falls out of the door. I don't see people, and that's just I don't see people purposely taking their mask and just throwing it on the ground, type of thing. So, maybe one will take care of the other, but.
I think it'll go away when COVID goes away.
That's true. Yes, Paige.
I was just going to comment, my personal opinion. I travel around multiple states actually, and I think it's pretty common. I'm not saying that it's acceptable, but it's not specific to Mystic. It's not specific to Groton. I see it everywhere. Somehow, whether they're falling out of trash cans, cars, people's pockets. Unfortunately, they are everywhere.
Yeah.
And
I don't see gloves like I used to. The gloves, when people were wearing gloves early on, that got me more than anything. I'd see gloves, but they'd take them off and that I don't see as much of. But you're right. When COVID goes away, masks, I don't think it's going to become a fashion statement long term. Anything else, guys?
Susan. Go ahead.
Susan, in terms of masks, it's the one piece of litter no one wants to pick up.
That's true.
I pick up litter all the time, but not a mask.
And I'm like that myself. I'm just sort of, a neat person. I just take things where they don't belong. But you're right. That's one thing you can't do.
Yeah, don't touch that one.
Anything else, guys?
I don't know if posting signs ever helps, but if there's anything about litter laws, maybe this is the time to
occasionally enforce one.
Emphasize it.
Well, my honest opinion, I think we're signed out because
Bill, I agree with you.
And I agree with the one way. I mean, it's taken some time for people to get used to it. but there's signs everywhere about everything. And I think people are eventually get this. If people are purposely doing it, and that's what I think it's more, as Paige says, out of pockets, out of cars. I have 20 masks. Now, most of mine are the nicer ones, as Justin said. So I try to keep track of them. But yeah, I think friendly reminders are probably the best we can do. But I don't know if another sign's going to cure that. That's just my opinion on it. So.
And it could be worse, I guess, because, if everybody's wearing a mask, we don't see like thousands of them all over the place.
Well, the good thing about, was it was brought up, our masks are the heavy. Groton people seem to keep track of those as opposed to the paper ones that are
Absolutely.
just, crumpled up.
Those are keepsakes.
Yeah, well, until after COVID, and I'm throwing away all my masks.
They're hanging on the wall.
I'm burning them. How's that? So, anything else, guys?
Hold on, Bill.
Yes, Justin.
Is there an option for more garbage receptacles in downtown Mystic?
I will inquire myself on that one and have Lauren get out to say this is what we're following up with.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely a public works issue.
Okay.
But as I said, is it a matter of more cans or is it more pickups? I don't, that's, I brought up, can we do sidewalks openings like they did in New Haven, and they came right back and said, no, that's not really feasible. Fair enough, but doesn't mean we don't throw ideas at them or ask for feedback on it. So
What we don't want is people emptying the stuff out of their car and throwing them into all these cans if we have twice as much.
Right.
No, but in terms of drawbridge, can you make a business responsible for the garbage that they produce? In terms of, if the sidewalk is dirty in front of you, you're going to get fined?
Well, I think my understanding of litter laws, it's the person actually littering, not the person that's giving it to them.
Okay.
So if you're going to start arresting tourists coming in because, think about it. You eat ice cream. How many napkins do you have? The napkins are, it shouldn't be that way, but it's a fact.
But they should have proper receptacles there, like.
Maybe that'll help, and I think that's a town issue. So let's not. I'd rather stay away from enforcement more, and a way of solving it that maybe some people are going to be litterers. We just know that.
Yeah,
so we're trying to get the ones that are trying.
There are plenty of legal cases nationwide where people try to sue McDonald's.
Yes,
lose every time.
We don't have a McDonald's. Oh, we do. We still have McDonald's on the hill. That's right.
Yeah.
Are they going with it? Are they getting rid of their styrofoam? I don't eat there, so I don't eat at fast food. But
well, I opened up the subject. Can I move adjournment?
Sure, you can.
Yes, please.
This is your fault, Craig. Your fault.
Yeah, Craig.
I have a second on that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Justin, we'll be in touch.
Nice to see you guys.
All right. Take care, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
Good night,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Good night.